Hi everybody, my name is Alan. On behalf of the crew, I'd like to welcome you to another edition of Bridging Heaven and Earth. You know, I mean, we've talked about this a lot before, that so much of our lives are, in a way, in thought patterns that limit our experience of the true love of this life. I mean, we think we know how things are, how things proceed, the nature of things, what the outer limits are on things, how things work and how things fit together. And yet something in our hearts knows that that's really not true, that there is an expansiveness, a magnificence that is something that we're not so tuned into at this point. And what happens in our lives is we become locked into those ideas of knowing, those ideas of thinking we have the whole thing planned out, we have the whole thing known. And what happens is we freeze up in that and we become like blockheads. And we wonder why. What happens when we become a blockhead? It's that there's not a ray of opportunity, there's not a ray of grace that can come into that locked perception of what we think is possible. I mean, you've heard me say so many times before that if for 1 minute we recognize that we're hurtling through space on this incredible ball that we call Earth, and what does gravity mean? What does it mean? I mean, how do we have cities and housing and all the things we have and think that that's the totality of it when we're literally hurtling through space on a ball? All of us, and the universe is so vast. And the possibilities of us knowing that expansiveness and feeling that expansiveness and that love, because when you feel that expansiveness in a human body, it feels like love. And we as human beings have the opportunity to experience that. Throughout history, teachers and masters have come and said, you can know that expansion, you can know that truth, you can know that love. And so many of the guests on the show have had experience in their lives that break the boundaries of our knowing. And whether we necessarily can experience exactly what they experience, just that openness to that they can and that they do and that they have been gifted that way would open up the boundaries of our blockheadedness. And every time there's a crack in that and that love comes through, it just feels so much more incredible. We feel so much more light and in touch with our true being, and that's really what we want. And so tonight we have another guest with us whose gifts have the potential to open our minds and hearts to another level of perception. Francesca Kimpton is an extraordinary, internationally known clairvoyant. She's a medium, she's a healer. She's the host of her own TV show in England, Revelations on Live TV. She's extraordinarily well known for her amazing prognostications on readings, the accuracy of them. And she had this gift. She would see what were spirits. She would see what she would think were people, and nobody else would see them from the time she was a little girl. She was just gifted that way, and that was an opportunity for her to expand into that knowing, to expand into that love. So it's an opportunity for us all, whether we have those particular gifts that Francesca has or not, to open our possibilities of what can be on this earth, what a human being in human body can experience. And we also been getting a lot of requests for those Lessia music videos that we showed a number of shows ago. One would be Oh Happy Day and one would be Enough God. And we also put those together with the foundation promos. So you'll see a couple of those extraordinary music videos of the Lessia songs too tonight, which also have the opportunity and give us the opportunity to open that love valve, that mind lock, just to break it open. And another thing I'd like to say before we get into tonight's show is I'd like to thank everybody. We've talked a lot about the Bridging Heaven and Earth Foundation and all the goals we have, and television studios and radio stations and recording studios to support all the New Age people and all the New Age activities, and to have a retreat center where we could have workshops and all that. well, all the people who've been supportive of us in so many ways. I just wanted to personally thank you on the air, and just, keep it coming. If you want to bring your consciousness and love and work with us in the foundation, there's nothing literally that can't be included in that. It's an inclusive organization in the light of people bringing their consciousness and love and dedication and all the skills they have to it. So as we normally do at this time, join me in a short meditation, then we'll begin with a video, and then Francesca will be with us. So just be open your heart, open your mind, and the next time there's an opportunity for us all to expand and to grow. So please join me. Okay, thank you very much. So yeah, it's a real opportunity for us all again. So the first video is the Oh Happy Day and the Foundation promo video. The song Oh Happy Day was written by myself and Lesia, and it's on the Lesia Bridging Heaven and Earth CD. So Oh Happy Day.
Happy day, no more painful walls divide us. Oh, happy day, it's a new millennium. Oh, happy day, with spirit that it guide us. Oh, happy day. We've been lost in our illusions. We were brainwashed from the start. We've been captured by contradictions that confuse a gentle heart. We've been pieces of a puzzle with a picture so unclear. We could never make much sense of how to love, what to feel. I believe we can do it. I think we stand a chance. It just takes a bit of knowing it's like learning how to dance. Since we are the world, we can change the world. Oh, happy day, see that kid out on the sidewalk. What
Hi, we're on the set with Francesca. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
So, when you were having these experiences as a young child, were people encouraging you? I mean, a lot of times we've had guests on the show whose parents and the people around them squished it out, and you know, it took 25 years for it to manifest again. What is
Or
your
longer in many
experience?
cases. It wasn't discouraged, I have to say. I mean, my family have always been very encouraging to it. I have to admit, when I was very, very young, they did warn me, in a sense, because I grew up in a very county area in Sussex, in England. They, in a sense, warned me not to maybe talk to everybody about it, but I had such courage of my convictions and my faith was so strong, I did anyway. And in one sense, I suppose that's where my bolshy character actually worked to my advantage.
So, how do you? I mean, we've had other people who claim, you know, say they're clairvoyants. How would you describe as a clairvoyant and a medium? What are they? The same? Different? How does that work?
Well, I'll give a little description of what they actually mean, or the mechanics of it. A medium is one who sees spirit and gives evidence of an afterlife, which means that through clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, we communicate with people that have passed away, often known as people that have died, and of course I never use that expression. I don't believe we ever do die as such, and then passes on messages from those loved ones to the recipients, or the people not seeking them. Clairvoyance means literally clear view, clear sight. So commonly, if a medium's giving a demonstration, they'll call it a demonstration of clairvoyance, but you can also be a clairvoyant without necessarily being a medium. People that work on a psychic level can see things, but they're working on a psychic level, which means they pick up on the energy around a person. They're not working on the higher vibration of linking in with a spirit.
So, and what is the benefit for people to get these messages? I mean, how does that work?
Enormous. It has a different effect on every person that receives a message. I think in every single case, it opens up something in their mind. The effects can start to happen immediately. Other times people may have a sitting or receive a message. Let's say, as an example, if somebody's very skeptical, and they'll walk away and they'll feel it may not have had such an effect, but it has. I always describe it a little like throwing a stone in a clear pond. It has a ripple effect. Benefits are enormous. I mean, sometimes it can just give comfort to somebody who's lost someone very dear to them, and they have a sense that they're still around, they're still looking out for them, and yes, they can communicate with them, whether it's by myself or on their own. In other cases, it can just help to give a little guidance, because Spirit always know what's going on in our lives. They always know the best route for us to take, which of course I can pass on to people. So it can be helpful in a very practical sense. There are so many ways in which it benefits people.
Is it always from a known relative, or can it be like, I mean, a lot of people talk about archangels or masters or something of that nature?
Yes, well, I mean, it's certainly in the UK, and I believe it's the same here in the States. It's actually illegal in public to give guides, archangels, anybody that cannot be proven, because working under the realms of spiritualism, to make that religion legalized, you had to give people that could be proven. Now,
So in other words, you have to give a relative, so you can say that the sock was in the side drawer. I mean, literally, it has to be like
someone that can be proven. Doesn't have to be someone known to you. I mean, they can go a long way back. So it might be your great-great-great-grandma or grandpa, or someone known to someone known well to you.
So in England, you can't get information from a person, from a saint or an archangel or a master.
You can if it's a private session, but publicly, if you're doing a platform demonstration, it's technically illegal. There are people that, of course, do it, and I'm sure there's very rarely lawyers sitting in the front row that are going to take someone up on that.
If they want to stop you, that's a way they can. I see.
Technically.
So, I mean, do you find that the messages come on those different levels? That something from like a great-grandfather would not have the same impact or the same clarity as what people call masters or archangels?
They have exactly the same information that can mean as much and be as helpful to you. The way I personally look at it, and this is my own theory, I see God as a kind of chairman if you like, in the spirit world. Then you have the archangels and the different levels of angelic beings working under him. Then, of course, because God can't pass personal messages to everybody, there's all those helpers that we have that pass on messages to individuals. And again, it means more to a person. I mean, someone's great-great-grandpa coming through may not make somebody very emotional if it's their son or their daughter or their partner or a very dear friend. That, in that sense, is going to be more impactful, of course, but the information would be as accurate.
And you think it's actually the energy of this departed person, in a way, however you describe it, who wants to give this information to their loved one here?
Yes, yes. I mean, thoughts never die, you know, so really it's transliterated through our minds in thought form. Oh, people often ask me, if somebody speaks a different language, how can they communicate? As I say, it's transliterated through the mind. So I can hear when somebody's talking with a heavy accent, but my helpers will translate the words that I hear. And you
actually
into
hear
English.
The words rather than get a sense of it? And
I work all three. I see pictures very clearly, I hear, and I see spirit, and I also have a sense. I mean, clairsentience, which means feeling, can work in different ways. You feel the emotions maybe the sitter is going through. If I'm describing the way that somebody has passed, for example, if they've had a stroke and were paralysed, my arm may go numb for a few seconds until I've said it and the person's accepted it, then I'll get the feeling back. It's not unpleasant, it's more the sensation of it rather than the pain.
Do you feel, I mean, I've heard different people say that they, feel a tremendous rush of energy when they do it. Do you have that experience?
It's very uplifting. I mean, over a period of time it can be draining, but on the whole it's very uplifting, and I've always found it to be uplifting. Mm.
And do you find that there's a particular general category of message? I mean, is there a message that love is the question, love is the answer? I mean, is there something that, is
do they all come through and say? You mean?
Well, in a general category or a general, if there was like a root message that comes through consistently, and I mean, you've done thousands.
In what they say, you mean in the way they word things? Is there a consistent message? If there's a general message, I'd say it's one of love. That's why they come through, and in my view, it's the purest form of love, really, that I think we ever need.
Personal love, that I loved you, you loved me, to do? I mean, is there any, or is it more that there is an experience, a transcendental? Is it like a spiritual message?
It gives somebody the feeling that they are having help from elsewhere. Sometimes on Earth we feel everybody's against us, everything is against us. Suddenly to get that message from someone or several people that have passed away, it's a different sensation than just having somebody call you saying they're on your side and they're supporting you. It's more uplifting. Quite often my clients will say that as I'm talking to somebody on the other side, they will get a strange sensation. It's almost as if they feel it. They feel a shift in their own energy.
And do they have to be in your presence to do it?
No, I do
them
on the telephone. So
you can do it over the phone?
Yes, and absolutely. I mean, quite often not quite often, it used to happen a lot. I will walk into my flat in England, into my home there, or just be sitting at home alone, and suddenly the spirit person will appear to me. Hopefully I will know the person, and they'll just ask me to ring somebody with an urgent message. That usually happens if there's an urgency or an emergency around it.
Wow, and you have to know the other person. It can't be, say, call Charles de Gaulle or...
Well, give the telephone number.
You're right, I mean, it doesn't come through that specifically.
No, sometimes what has happened is I will have somebody in my home giving me messages and think, well, that's great, I don't actually know who you are. Spirit get their timing a little way out and they can be very impatient, but it turns out to be someone I'm due to see either the next day or maybe in a month's time. So that's happened in the past. But no, quite often if I'm very close to somebody, if it's for a friend of mine, something like that, they will come through and ask me to
And so you have a different experience of death now than other people. Or why don't you describe that?
It's hard for me to compare because I've never ever had an experience of what other people's view of death is.
Well, what is yours? I'll describe it.
It's something that... and I would be interested in hearing that. I've never been afraid of death, and I don't take this the wrong way, but I think it's something that we should look forward to. That is not the same thing as saying we don't want to live here. I just see it as being the most fabulous experience. I mean, a good way to describe the spirit world is if you imagine everything on Earth on a physical level in duplicate but it's metaphysical. In other words, it's not solid. And
So
really,
it's lighter. Everything about it's lighter.
It's more
and we
pure.
don't feel
It's more
heavier
chaste.
and carrying something around.
Exactly, and we don't have all the physical obstacles that we have here, and a lot of the negative thoughts have gone, which are really brought on through our conditioning, through our life. So I don't
So
really
why
know how to describe.
how do you see it working that this experiment say happened where the negativity happened? Have you been given any information about why we
Things are
took
negative.
human form and not stayed in spirit? So that
Would
we
have been a great idea.
You think?
It's to learn, really. I think it's a learning process. I mean, the difference between us and other animals is that God gave us, well, hopefully a more advanced brain, which gives us more freedom and more choice, which means a choice to make the right decisions or the wrong decisions, or decisions for good, decisions for evil. And then it depends how we use that intelligence.
So this particular experiment was to see how that would work if the infinite came down and took separate form.
How godlike would we remain with all the
and
obstacles?
Forgetting that we are that infinite and that love.
Because people do. I think there is so much against people in life, and so much grief and anxiety and trouble that they go through. And I've known very few people that haven't had a very, very hard time at some point in their life, at least. Yeah, I think it must be very hard for those people to believe there is a God. I mean, I have a client who's a nun, but she gave that up.
She's a nun?
Yes.
And she can't believe there's a God. Oh my
Well,
God.
she left.
She
left the convent some time ago, when subsequently married, when her partner passed. Yes, she couldn't believe there was a God for a while. So it just goes to show that we are all human, no matter how spiritual our beliefs.
In other words, like all of us have a cross to bear, and it depends when it comes up and where it is. I mean, that certainly would keep us humble.
Yes, exactly. So I'm quite interested in hearing how other people do view death. I know that some people are very frightened of death. They don't even want to hear the word.
Okay, so I mean, you've dealt with thousands and thousands of people. Why do you get that people are frightened of death?
I think because they feel it's going
I think I should start underneath the roots.
It's going into the unknown. It signifies everything in life that we don't want to do. One associates death usually with being old. Now, I know that is not the case, because I talk to as many people, if not more, who've lost people very young. Children, partners at a young age.
Tables aren't for everybody.
Absolutely not. So it signifies getting old, end of your life, fear that you're not going to achieve everything here that maybe you wanted to. Subconsciously, I think there's a worry, what's going to happen to me when I get onto the other side? Thinking of all the negative things they've done in life.
Do you think, even though that maybe that's coming out more with the work or the play that you're doing, and people like John Edwards and James Van Praagh and all those types of people?
I think between us all, we are killing the fear of passing through.
Killing the fear.
I hope we are. I certainly hope we are. I mean, I've had a lot of people say to me that before they'd had this experience, they were very frightened of passing on, and now they're not. So
and would you say, it always seems to me that people really aren't afraid of death, but it's not that they don't know how to die, they don't know how to live. And if you don't know how to live, you're not going to know how to die, because you're not going to be in each moment. It's the same thing. So, I mean, what is your experience?
I think what a lot of people really are frightened of, it's not the actual passing, because that's nothing to fear. But people never really look that far ahead. They never, when you ask somebody, are you frightened of death? They won't think of the moment of death. They're scared of how it might happen. Nobody wants to sit in a hospital being terminally ill for 6 months, or be in a horrific accident and be in pain. Nobody wants to actually go through the process that leads to death. And I think if people were honest and really gave it any thought, that's the scary, fearful part.
Would you also say another way to look at it, maybe if everyone was in every moment to be here now, and they were living in that infinite moment to moment to moment, then at some point they would change their clothes, at some point they would change their bodies, at some point they would leave their bodies. So I mean, the infinite would always be their companion, rather than all the fear and of the future and the past and all the things they are and not are.
And what Spirit always try and teach us is to live in the moment. They give us a lot of insight into the future, long-term future, short-term future, but that does not mean that you just sit back and wait for it to happen. It's to give you guidance as to how to get there.
Actually, that's interesting. Why don't you start on that? I think we're going to have another video in a few minutes, but why don't you start talking about what knowing about the future? I mean, is that part of it? I mean, see, there are different types of messages that could be empowering and inspiring. Knowing about specific actions in the future, never to me made much sense, to tell you the truth.
Really?
If I'm not just so bold.
Why?
Why?
Yes.
What difference does it make? If I might be so bold, I'll ask you right out. What difference does it make if I knew, I don't know, anything about the future?
Because I think sometimes people can become very depressed, very down, if they're having a tough time or suffering a lot for a period in their life. And as we all know, suffering doesn't usually last for a few weeks or a few days. It can last for several years at a time. So just knowing that maybe one dream might come true, or that things are going to get better, obviously more detail than just saying that, which sounds a bit fluffy, it gives people a little more hope and determination to carry on and get through the tough times currently.
Well, but information doesn't always have to be
good about the future. No, it can work the other way. I was just coming to that.
Right.
But it can still help, because I always say to people, if I see bad things, I will tell you, and I do tell you, because if I'm seeing them and Spirit is showing them to me, it is because it's meant to be passed on. I'm not sitting there seeing them for fun and holding them back from the client. Spirit always know how much a certain person can take at any particular time, even if it's very hard for them.
But whether it's positive or negative information, what I've found, now I don't know, I mean, you know, in your particular work, but I mean, a lot of healers and psychics and clairvoyants, the time frames are like, could be literally thousands of years off, it seems. But something is going to happen.
A few years off, yes.
Because Spirit has a certain time frame and humans have a certain time frame. I mean, is that your experience?
Well, that's a common theory. I think in a way it's a little bit of a myth, and I had rather an amusing thing with Spirit quite some years ago now. I started to discover that the months, even dates, that I was giving were very accurate, but it may be a year or several years, quite a few years out. And I was talking to Spirit and said, well, you know, why don't you give us a better timing on the year? They said to me, because you don't ask for the year. Well, I don't ask the month anyway, you just give that. And it's as if they were having a joke, so I started asking for the actual year. Usually I know if something is imminent or if I am going much further into the future. But there are reasons why they go ahead too, you see. And we can go on to that later part of the show if you like.
We'll show the second video. This is Enough God. In the foundation promo, you'll see that again. A lot of people asked for it. We haven't shown it in a while. It was written by Lesia. The song Enough God, and it's on the Lesia Bridging Heaven and Earth CD, so Enough God.
Teach him how to hate. Don't ask why, just do it. To teach him how to kill. So well, there's nothing to it. To teach him how to load and fire for their holy land. Take a little more, make him an angry man. But isn't there enough God to go around? Aren't there enough soldiers underground? Isn't there a bit of peace to be found? Isn't there enough God to go around? And on the other side sits a mother crying. Son is back, but not for long, 'cause he lies dying. Another faceless boy shot down for their holy land. Though she prays for him, she can't really understand. She says, isn't there enough God to go around? Aren't there enough soldiers underground? Isn't there a bit of peace to be found? Isn't there enough God eyes that don't see what they're doing. They'll trade anything for the dreams that never settle in. They burn, they bomb, they bargain for their holy land. But nobody wins that way. Nobody ever can. Tell me, isn't there enough God to go around? Aren't there enough soldiers underground? Isn't there a bit of peace to be found? Isn't there enough God to go around? Isn't there enough God to go around? Aren't there enough soldiers underground? Isn't there a bit of peace to be found? Isn't there enough God to go around? Isn't there enough God? Isn't there enough God? Isn't there enough God to go around? Go around, go around, to go around.
Hi, welcome. We're back with Francesca. So why don't you return to that subject of the time frames, you know, kind of human time versus spirit time?
Right. Well, I don't believe that they don't have a clue on time. I think they actually do. I think what they're trying to tell us, you know, we often say, well, you have forever to do everything. We actually don't. What I've learned they're trying to tell us is, no, a lot of things don't actually matter. Quite often in sittings, they'll go to main events or catalytic events in somebody's life, in the bigger picture of that person's life. And if nothing really important is going to happen to that person, maybe for a decade, well, not in the spiritual sense or what spirit have planned for them, then it's going to take a decade for the events they talk about to take place. And a lot of that depends on when a person has a sitting. Someone might see me a week before, they're meant to do something very impactful, you know, start their proper path. So there is that. I mean, timing is such a vast subject, and I could talk about it for hours and hours. And people often say to me, well, do spirit know the future? You know, they often give messages just giving evidence as to who they were, and as you say, the sock in the right drawer, you know. But yes, they do. I think they know an awful lot more than they let on to us. And the reason that they give future events is, let's go for the negative side, as we touched on that earlier. Why do they talk about future events that are negative? It can be used as a warning. So although somebody may not always be able to avoid it, they can at least be given some guidance as to how to cushion it a little.
Knowledge of that, can you change?
Sometimes, yes,
I mean,
sometimes.
like a lot of earthquakes have been predicted, and then the information that I've gotten is that because so much light is coming into the planet and internally and externally, that different of the events that were supposed to happen are not going to happen.
Well, in an individual's life, could they avoid something negative completely? I think in some cases they can. And that's one form of a warning. But other times, and usually I can sense this, it's going to happen anyway. It's their destiny. But as I say, it can cushion them a little if they're forewarned. So that's the idea of, you know, telling the future on the negative side. On the positive side, well, it can give direction if you do X, Y, Z, and they might even give specific names or people to have more contact with or to avoid, to make a situation much better or to lead you on to something that's very positive. Then they'll give that information. So I think there are a lot of very positive reasons for them giving future events.
Let me ask you this: Do you think that all the information is available to each of us?
Yes.
We have all, and that's a message that comes through. So
absolutely.
what blocks that, and how do you see your play and work, you know, breaking through that and allowing?
The only thing that blocks it is an individual's refusal to accept it. That's the only thing that would ever block it. Or maybe many people on this earth are unaware of the spirit world. You know, a lot of people, they're brought up in whatever faith they're brought up in, Judaism, Christian, Islam, and of course they all believe in an afterlife, but they've never really considered what that actually means. You know, people talk about, well, yes, there is an afterlife, people go to be with God, they sit in heaven for eternity. No one's actually really thought about what do they actually do up there? Can they still communicate? If they're still living, then they're still a life force, and they still have thoughts, and still have, in a sense, voices to be used. I mean, there's a very strong connection between us and the spirit world that I think a lot of people are just not aware of. So that, of course, creates a block. Other people, again, it's going back to fear. You know, a lot of people are very frightened. They're frightened of what they might be told if they get a message. They're frightened of what's going to happen. Some people are really scared that maybe a full, you know, spirit will appear in human form in front of them and scare them. And even if it did, it wouldn't be frightening. It would be wonderful.
So it was like when we opened the show, I talked about breaking down the barriers of knowing into the ocean of, in a way, unknowing, or the ocean of the infinite. And you find that what you do allows people to do that because they come in with certain conceptions of the possibilities, and then
Yes,
a lot
and
of
then
times
of course,
they get their minds
they
blown.
talk to other people then may get interested in it, maybe a week later, 5 years later, have a sitting, or go to a spiritualist church, or have, you know, get involved in some way. And it's like, again, it's going back to the ripple effect. You know, a lot of people talk to other people, therefore the more people that I and people like me get that message across to, the more they will spread that message.
Do you find that you're a vehicle for messages coming through of tools that people can use to break down those fears? I mean, okay, so, you know, the egg gets cracked. They go in, the egg gets cracked that you're, you know, reading or healing, and then they go back in the world, and if they keep doing the same things they've done, I mean, the egg is either not going to crack anymore or
It usually does, whether, as I say, it's immediate or whether it's some years later or whether they need it. Quite often people are open to this. They think, fine, it's useful, it's helpful, it's given me something, but maybe it didn't mean so much to them at that particular time. Several years later they'll have a crisis, somewhere in the recesses of their brain, they'll remember that connection they've had with spirit and rush back to it.
Are there tools that this, you know, the spirit realm or the teachers from that realm give, you know, through you to these different people? Because it would seem to me if we don't change the way we proceed, you know, and develop tools to keep that egg or that valve of consciousness open, or to open it.
I think spirit are working on that all the time. I mean, they never ever miss an opportunity, if that's what you mean by a tool, to get through to someone in some way. Anytime they see an opportunity, they always will.
I mean, a lot of
in every
spiritual
sense.
paths have like tools to help do that, like meditation, like holy company. I mean, is that encouraged in your readings and healings as a general rule?
It is. I mean, obviously it's good to meditate. I think you'll find, in honesty, a lot of mediums don't meditate before every sitting. They do. You know, it's real life. But yes, it is an important part. I mean, I used to fast quite regularly as well. But it's nothing really to do with being a medium. It's each...
No, I mean the
clairvoyants or
message that
mediums.
comes through, not necessarily you in particular, but the messages that come through, it would seem to make the messages of real value to people once the egg is shaken up.
What should the people use as tools, you mean?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, not necessarily what you're using,
No,
but
not necessarily. There are some people that will take it down that path, but other people not at all, and yet it will have an effect on them. They'll use it more, or let's say have a more spiritual approach in their everyday life, but not necessarily use any specific tools, no. They don't have to, it's not a prerequisite, no. No.
well,
What
I mean,
spirit are more concerned about is how we act in our everyday life, our attitude to other people.
well, yeah, but I mean, there's a reason that there's, you know, that we don't think there's enough God to go around. There's something about the way the humans proceed in this life that doesn't allow that understanding or that experience of the oneness to really be part of their lives so much. So, you know, all the as far as I can tell, all the teachers or the masters that came had a message of some form of activity so a human can kind of get into that
Well, I
experience.
think it's understandable why some people can't believe there's enough God to go round, but I think if they are open to spirit and they obviously believe in God or believe in the afterlife and have ever had even their own signs from someone in spirit, and they give lots of signs to all of us every single day. You know, your loved ones do to you every day. It's a question of whether you pick up on them or not. But if people have had that communication, then they understand the meaning of the tragedies in their life, in the world, and it takes on a whole different meaning. You know?
So do you find that when you travel the world giving readings and healings, that there's more of an openness to this type of experience now than there ever was before?
Even in the last decade, it's opened up an awful lot. And I think that's because when it got to the late 80s, everything was so materialistic. And that didn't work too well by the time 1990 came around. So throughout the last decade, I think people, when things get so bad, suddenly people all believe in the spirit world and they all believe in God, because they'll, you know, grab onto any resource they possibly can.
And is this mostly in the Western? I mean, you travel mostly in the Western world?
No, I travel mostly in the Western world, yes.
And so you see that is definitely from the material 80s, that the outgrowth of that is an openness to spirit, to something other.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know that there's something more than the car and the money and the mortgage and
That's right,
the family.
yes. And I think over the next 10 years, there'll be a balance between the two. And it's what a lot of my work involves is teaching people in the corporate arena to be able to combine the spiritual side and the spiritual way of thinking with the materialistic reality.
Bridging heaven and earth. Oh,
absolutely, in a corporate sense.
Right.
And that can be hugely beneficial, because obviously we need our businesses, we need our materialism. It makes, you know, earth work. And yet to combine it with, you know, spirit help.
And do you find that major corporations are really opening to that and really providing people like you to serve their executives and all?
Yes, much more now. A lot of them don't admit to it, so that is why.
So they sneak you in?
Absolutely.
Seriously?
A lot of people are not that open about it because it's a little like getting inside information.
So, I mean, literally, they don't advertise it, but you're in, like, one of their workshops or one of their meetings of all the top
well, I give a lot
executives.
of advice using my psychic and mediumistic abilities to companies. Now, it could be on recruitment, that's a main reason they use me, legal issues, that sort of thing. So they're getting inside information, you know.
But they're open to it getting it that way.
Oh, completely, if it works.
Right, and do you think it's changing their individual lives? Yes?
Yes, I
and
do.
in what way do you see that happening?
Because they're having a trust that this is coming from somewhere else. Suddenly, they start to feel a little bit conscious that, oh, are my loved ones up there watching what I do? Can they hear my thoughts? Which, of course, they can. And gradually, people start having less negative thoughts. When I say negative, I mean more destructive thoughts towards other people.
Unempowering, uninspiring.
Yes. Or even, you know, vicious thoughts towards other people. Once you're aware that, you know, somebody, a bigger force than us, is watching and hearing everything that's going on in your life, you do start to be a bit more careful, I think.
Wow. Well, we had a different opening.
Yeah, and I think that's why some people are rather scared. It's like, well, I do know there's something out there, but I just would rather deny it.
Well, the unknown is, you know, I mean, although we actually do know it, but I mean, you know, this is just, to me, it's just an interesting experiment here, the way it is set up, that so many people don't remember that experience of the vastness, the oneness, however you describe it.
The way I look at it is that we all come from the spirit world, and when we're very young children, we can remember that. I always see it as a little like moving home, and being born is like moving home. Once one moves, some people keep in touch with their old, you know, friends and colleagues far more than others. And the way I look at it with myself, I just have to keep in touch with my old friends, maybe more than other people.
And would you say that the information that's given leads to a more joyous experience? Would you say that joy is the outgrowth of it, would you say?
Yes, ultimately, yes, very much. And people use spirit information and sittings in different ways. There might be someone who's lost someone very dear to them, a child, lifelong partner. They'll have one sitting, it will give them the evidence they need, and that's all they'll need. They'll never go back. It's given them, yeah, everything.
So it just it like unblocks.
It just unblocks, and it's just a confirmation to them. Yes, that person's still around. They've given me the evidence. They've given me my message, and they go out feeling great. There are other people where they'll have one and they'll love it, but they think, hey, I like this. Now, say it's the insider information again. They start to use it on a more regular basis. I don't encourage it to be done too regularly. I don't look for codependent clients, it's not healthy. The idea is they give us little snippets of information then we
And they have to
continue.
digest them over human time, a part of their
Absolutely,
growth process.
absolutely. And the more sittings that one has over a period of, say, maybe several years, they get to understand them and use them more wisely. Because some things can be a little bit cryptic. And some things can be very
I mean,
literal.
in other words, like if somebody comes in and sits down, and so will you see spirit around them?
Yes, yes, I'll see them, hear them first, sometimes see them first, and then I just pass on whatever they have to say. Well, I try and identify the person, first of all.
And so you will
Describe
go,
them.
there's a tall,
Tall, dark, handsome.
distinguished
Yes.
man standing behind you.
Absolutely.
Who should be talking.
So I will describe the person, and there might be some things that are more prominent about somebody than others. It could be a facial feature, the dress sense, their characteristics, their personality. Try and identify who they are. Quite often they'll give the way in which they passed. The person then would hopefully accept them. Sometimes they'll give their name, or just state their relationship to that person, like, husband, mother, father. And then you try to get more information from the spirit. Sometimes it's just one, other times several communicators come in. But they tend to retain the same characteristics they do here. If somebody here was very forthright, very aggressive in their manner, they're going to be the same over there. If someone, when they were here, was very meek and mild-mannered, they're going to be the same when they come through to me. A lot of people say, well, my grandma came through, why didn't she say anything earth-shattering? Well, she never said anything earth-shattering here.
Well,
There
there is a level of growth, right? I mean,
there is, but you see, the thing is, if I said, well, I've got your grandmother here, and she's coming through as, a white halo on a cloud, no one's going to be able to recognize that. It doesn't mean anything.
It doesn't mean anything to them.
It doesn't mean anything to them. As I say, it's not
But
evidential,
it
it's not
doesn't mean that
proving
the
who they
person
are.
can't come through with a message that's of a little higher than they would, the crap they gave here, would you? Wouldn't you say that's a possibility? That would
They
be
give
of value?
messages that are usually relevant to the person's life, helpful, evidential. They go down memory lane a bit, obviously, again, to prove who they are. Quite often the messages aren't for the sitter, they're for people, other people in the family, or that circle of people, that they're very concerned about, maybe due to health problems or emotional trauma. So they come through really to help, give guidance, messages on a larger scale sometimes if it's relevant.
So, and you find that people really take this information and are, one, open to it, and two, it really affects their lives as they move forward.
Yes, very much. Well, my clients do anyway.
Right. Now, let me
Very
ask you
much.
something. So, if you were in a room, like, say, when somebody else was doing a reading, John Edwards, the people who do it, Von Prague.
Would I see what they're seeing?
Would you see what they see? Would you see
Yes.
exactly what they see?
Yes, one would hope, yes. I mean, sometimes they might be picking up more on one person, and I might be picking up more on another. But if I'm tuning in to what they're seeing, then yes, I will see the same thing. One has to do that when they're teaching. I teach a lot of development circles, which means training people to do what I do. And I do small groups because it works best that way, and I have to see what's going on with everybody. So if they're starting to see things, I have to see what they're seeing where they're going wrong, what spirit are trying to tell them that maybe they're not noticing or not getting the signs.
So, is it possible that you would see you obviously see what other people don't see, and is there possible that people would see what you don't see? And would they be able to
If another medium is in the same
Yeah.
room, yes, well, they should be able to, yes. Because
see
if it's
what
there,
you
it's
see?
there. Yeah.
If it's there, it's there. The same way these flowers are here, they're here.
Yeah,
So
you see
people
them,
with
I
eyes,
see them.
If
Yeah.
people have eyes, they can see
Yes,
them.
if they've got a third eye.
But now,
see
if
them,
somebody
whichever
is
one has.
right, but if somebody has, like, say, X-ray vision and can see every atom, not everybody can do that. So, are there different levels of clairvoyance or clairaudience, or
There are. Some people tend to have a greater ability in one more than the other. Some people only hear, they don't see. Some people only sense, they don't actually see or hear. I mean, X-ray vision, as you talked about, X-ray vision, yes, I have that as well when it comes to health issues. It doesn't mean that you're literally seeing the whole anatomy of the body beyond the skin, but you're homing in purely on the area where there's a problem, and you're seeing it in more of a symbolic form. So
So in
you can
other
see
words,
what's
like
wrong.
you do healings of that way too. We hadn't really gotten into that. So in other words, if you were doing a healing of a physical ailment, now there are obviously other components to physical ailments. That's the tip of the iceberg.
Psychological,
But you
yes.
could, the whole emotional, spiritual blockages. But you could see
if somebody didn't come in and say to you, I have a kidney problem, or I have
Then
a liver problem,
I would be able to
you
see
would
that.
know that right away.
Yeah.
And then theoretically you would get information about how to deal with that.
You
I mean,
can,
can you heal that? Can you remove that? Because we have had some people on who deal in that way.
oh
I mean,
yes, I mean anything can be healed, and it's as if I'm an instrument which spirit work through. I do hands-on healing, and I'm the instrument they work through, and the energy rushes through me to heal that person. The only difference between maybe a healer and a surgeon, the surgeon will treat the symptom, whereas spirit will go to the actual cause, because quite often you get pain in one part of the body and a bad part of the body there, but it's actually starting from something else in the body. So it has like this effect, referred effect. And spirit will actually cure the root cause, and quite often, I think almost in 99% of cases, it's psychological. So in a healing session, or even in a sitting as well, because obviously spirit mentioned health in sittings, you go back and you look for where the problem really started, not when the person started feeling the pain or getting the physical
not necessarily
symptoms.
even this week or this year or this lifetime necessarily.
Well, trying
do
to
you
think of an
s-
example, someone could have a serious health problem and spirit will say, go back 10 years, they'll take me back 10 years. And maybe that person had a trauma in their life 10 years ago. They may not have immediately become ill, but if they look back, it was when they started to get the physical signs of something going wrong.
And
But they never think to
do
associate it.
more people come to you for physical ailments or depression or, you know, opening or desire for...
What I find very interesting is if somebody is physically ill, whether it's minor or a major illness, then quite often they are emotionally stressed and there's a lot going on in their life. The two always seem to link in.
Yeah,
So I work the two together.
disharmony is
Yes,
generally
the
together.
disease, the
But I
disharmony
mean,
is
do
there.
most people come to you thinking that you're going to heal their physical, or just there's just a whole amalgam
It's
of...
again an experiment. With some people, you can give one healing session to them, and it could be a back problem, internal problem, anything. They're better afterwards. With other people, it can take a lot of work, and not everybody can be healed. If someone's terminally ill and they're due to
This
pass
time
on,
they've done enough,
but what the
yeah.
healing can do is it can, in a sense, give more quality of life for the last part they do have left here, and it can also help them to pass away with dignity.
Well, that's nice, passing away with dignity. That's exactly what we're doing with the show now.
That's nice
Hopefully
to
we
do.
had
Well,
a dignified show and we could pass off. So, yeah, you know, I just want to thank Francesca. I hope you liked the talk and the videos. We have an extraordinary season planned. We have just wonderful guests coming in literally from all over the world. Again, let me thank you for all the support, all the letters, the calls. We're on in about 40 cities now, it looks like. We're going to have all the shows available to have the audio portion heard on the internet. So at some point, very soon, probably by the time you hear this, you'll be able to heal. If you go to the Bridging Heaven and Earth site, there'll be connections to hearing all the shows. So we love you. Good night. God bless you. Thank you for coming. Good night.
good night.